The temple is built on numbers so pure. In sacred shapes the masters endure. Symbols of wisdom, signs that align. In divinity's light the stars shine. The black sun hums where the axis turns. Illusions fade and wisdom burns. Golden ratio, steps we tight. Through the alchemist ring we'll mind.
The soul is the stone, it's been here all along, hidden in verses, concealed in song.
It is a 5-pointed star, but it is inverted, with 1 point directed downward toward the earth and 2 points directed upward toward the sky. Inside the star is a pentagram, and inside the pentagram are 5 symbols arranged around a central letter, 1 symbol in each of the 5 triangular points of the inverted star. The symbols are a sword and a veil, a sheaf of wheat, a lion's head, a cup, and a crown with a broken column. The central letter is the letter G, the same letter that appears at the centre of the square and compass of Freemasonry. Around the outer edge of the star, each point is coloured: blue, yellow, white, green, and red. The whole device is surrounded by a circular band bearing the motto that the organisation has used since its founding in the middle of the 19th century. The motto is, "We have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him." This is the symbol of the Order of the Eastern Star, the largest fraternal organisation in the world that admits both men and women, with an estimated membership of over 1 million people in chapters across the United States and in dozens of countries around the world. It was founded in the 1850s by a man who spent most of his adult life attempting to give women access to the Masonic world that excluded them, and it has been connected to Freemasonry since its inception in a relationship of institutional proximity and official distance that has shaped the Order's identity for the entire span of its existence. It conducts initiatory ceremonies of considerable elaboration, built around 5 biblical heroines whose stories are encoded in the 5 points of the inverted star, and whose virtues the Order presents to its members as a moral curriculum. It operates in chapter rooms arranged in a specific spatial configuration, with officers positioned at precise locations and a ceremonial floor plan, whose symbolism is as deliberate as anything in a Masonic lodge. It has produced members of extraordinary consequence, has been present at some of the most significant moments in American political and cultural history, and has served as one of the primary institutional vehicles through which the tradition of women's fraternal organisation has been maintained in the English-speaking world for the better part of 2 centuries. And yet the Order of the Eastern Star is almost completely absent from the mainstream historical account of American fraternal and religious life, overlooked by the scholars who study Freemasonry, underrepresented in the histories of women's organisations, and known to most people, if it is known at all, as a vague and slightly exotic footnote to the better documented story of the lodges it has always stood adjacent to. The invisibility is partly a function of the Order's own commitment to discretion, partly a function of the broader cultural tendency to treat women's institutions as secondary to the male institutions they are affiliated with, and partly a function of something that the Order's history suggests is more deliberate than accidental: the specific choice to locate the Order's most serious work, its initiatory structure, its symbolic system, and its philosophical ambitions, in a space that the casual observer would not find worth examining closely. This is the full story of the Order of the Eastern Star, and to tell it properly it has to begin not in the middle of the 19th century when the Order was formally organised, but much earlier, in the specific tradition of women's initiation and women's secret knowledge that the Order was drawing from when its founder sat down to write the rituals that would define it. The exclusion of women from the formal structures of Freemasonry is one of the oldest and most consistent features of the organisation's institutional life, and it is also one that was contested from very early in the Masonic tradition. The foundational documents of Freemasonry, the old charges that codified the operative Masons' guild customs before the formation of the First Grand Lodge in 1717, did not address the question of women's admission, because the question did not arise in the context of a working craft whose practitioners were almost exclusively male. But speculative Freemasonry, the philosophical fraternity that emerged from the operative craft in the early 18th century, was a creation of a social world in which women were present and active participants in intellectual and cultural life, and the exclusion of women from the lodge rooms was not a natural consequence of the work, but a deliberate institutional choice whose specific justifications were debated from the beginning and never fully resolved. In France, where Freemasonry arrived in the 1720s and developed with a social character somewhat different from its English original, the pressure to include women in some form of Masonic initiation produced, by the 1730s and 40s, the creation of adoptive lodges, a form of mixed or women's Masonic organisation conducted under the patronage of regular male lodges, in which women could be initiated into a set of degrees adapted from the male system, and could participate in lodge life in a way that the regular Masonic constitution did not permit. The adoptive lodges developed their own symbolic system and their own degree structure, drawing on biblical narrative and classical mythology in ways that were recognizably Masonic in their approach to the use of allegory and symbol as vehicles for moral and philosophical instruction. The Grand Orient of France formally recognized adoptive Masonry in 1774 at a ceremony presided over by the Duchess of Bourbon, and for the remainder of the 18th century and into the 19th, the adoptive lodges were a significant feature of French Masonic culture, attracting women of the highest social standing and contributing to the development of a distinctly French tradition of mixed fraternal organization. Marie Antoinette was initiated into an adoptive lodge. The Empress Josephine, Napoleon's first wife, was a member of an adoptive lodge and served as its grand mistress. The connections between the adoptive lodge tradition and the political and social history of France in the late 18th and early 19th centuries are more extensive than the standard accounts of either Freemasonry or the French Revolutionary period acknowledge, and the specific role that women initiated through the adoptive system played in the networks of information and influence that shaped the events of that period has been a subject of scholarly inquiry without ever having been fully traced. The American tradition that produced the Order of the Eastern Star drew on this French inheritance, but developed its own character in response to the specific social and religious culture of the United States in the middle of the 19th century. The man who created the Eastern Star degree system was Rob Morris, a Kentucky schoolteacher and poet and committed Freemason, who had been initiated into Masonry in 1846, and who had spent the years following his initiation, working his way through the degree structure of the Scottish Rite, and developing an increasingly systematic interest in the question of whether the benefits of Masonic membership, specifically the specific combination of moral education, fraternal support, and initiatory experience that Morris genuinely believed the Masonic system provided, could be extended to women in a form that was consistent with both the Masonic tradition and the religious culture of mid-19th century America.
The temple stands where numbers rise, a sacred dream in endless skies. Golden echoes, whispers bright, carved in stars, a guiding light.